Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to uncover how your messy relationship patterns aren't actually a personal failing, but really just outdated biological survival software running in your brain. If you've ever wondered why you run toward commitment like it's a finish line, or maybe you sprint in the exact opposite direction the literal second things get, too real, well, you are in exactly the right place.
Look, we all chase the spark in dating, right? We treat it like this magical, cosmic signal from the universe telling us that someone truly matters. But I really want to challenge you to ask yourself something today. Is that intense, butterfly-inducing feeling true connection, or is it just your nervous system hitting the panic button? So let's dive right into section 1 and explore why that spark might actually just be fear.
Let's look at what's happening inside your brain the exact millisecond you meet someone new, way before your conscious mind even has a chance to catch up. Faster than you can blink, in just 100 milliseconds, your brain's pattern matching system goes to work. It uses a specialized region called the fusiform face area to evaluate their face, their tone of voice, their micro-expressions, all against the perceptual templates of your youth. And if they happen to match a familiar environment, even if that familiar environment was completely chaotic or emotionally unavailable, your brain immediately flags them as high salience. It tags them as critically important.
And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates the trap we fall into. That intense arousal you feel, it isn't necessarily just pleasure. A lot of the time, it's a physiological stress response. Your brain is absolutely flooding you with adrenaline and norepinephrine. Your heart beats faster, your palms get sweaty. You think it's fate, but biologically speaking, it is so much closer to fear. Your brain is just recognizing a familiar pattern. And unfortunately, for a lot of us, familiar doesn't always mean healthy. Moving into section 2, let's unpack this biological survival software. To really understand why our brains seek out these stressful familiarities, we have to look back. Back in the mid-20th century, the researcher John Bowlby showed that based on exactly how our earliest caregivers responded to our needs, we developed one of 4 relational operating systems. And this happened before we could even speak. It was a pure adaptation for survival. This is essentially the root code of our relationship software. If your caregivers were consistent, you developed a secure attachment. But if they were inconsistent or dismissive or intrusive, you adapted with one of the insecure styles. So let's look at the anxious style first. If you have an anxious style, you aren't just being clingy. Your brain has literally been biologically conditioned to view distance, like say, a delayed text message, as an actual threat to your survival. It's a state of nervous system hypervigilance, where you overanalyze every single silence. Why? Because in your early years, relationships were your primary source of safety, and that safety just wasn't guaranteed. On the flip side, individuals with an avoidant attachment style learned that expressing emotions was either totally pointless or actively counterproductive, so they use unconscious, deactivating strategies. This looks like suddenly fixating on a partner's minor flaws or throwing up excessively rigid boundaries, just to create distance. To an avoidant, extreme self-reliance equals safety, and vulnerability feels like a dangerous trap. Which brings us to section 3, the dreaded anxious-avoidant trap. Now, what happens when these two totally opposing survival strategies end up in a romantic relationship together? Well, it creates a highly toxic pursuer-distancer dynamic. And let me tell you, it is one of the most common and absolutely most painful pairings out there. The anxious partner desperately chases to soothe their intense fear of abandonment. But that exact pushing behavior, it directly triggers the avoidant partner's fear of engulfment, causing them to pull away even further to protect their autonomy. It's a vicious cycle where each partner's coping mechanism perfectly triggers the other person's deepest wounds. And here is a super crucial point to remember. This withdrawing behavior isn't malicious. When an avoidant feels really close to someone, their brain releases cortisol, which is your primary stress hormone. The avoidant partner's physical body is reacting to emotional closeness as if it were in mortal danger. They pull away right when you feel the most connected because their biology is literally screaming at them to escape. This perfectly sets up section 4, the addiction of inconsistency. This relentless push and pull dynamic we just talked about. It does way more than just cause arguments. It actually hacks your brain's reward center, mirroring the exact same neural mechanisms you'd see in addiction. Let's break it down. Step 1. The distance causes a painful cortisol spike and intense distress. Step 2. The unpredictable waiting triggers a massive surge of dopamine, which is the anticipation chemical. And finally, step 3, the eventual reconciliation floods your system with oxytocin, the bonding hormone. Over time, this variable ratio reward system rewires your neural pathways.
It operates exactly like a slot machine in a casino. Because of something called the contrast effect, the good moments feel incredibly vivid simply because they are such a huge relief from the sheer panic that preceded them. You literally become chemically trauma bonded. You end up mistaking the relief of stress for this profound, extraordinary love. In Section 5, we have to look at what happens when this friction becomes violence. We really need to look at how these deep-seated insecurities can lead to much darker extremes, moving way beyond emotional pain and into actual harm. There's a 2021 clinical study by Natasha Godbout and her colleagues that examined couples seeking therapy. The research objectively highlights that attachment insecurities, particularly attachment avoidance, are indirectly linked to both psychological and physical intimate partner violence. The key mediator here is severe relationship dissatisfaction. It just really shows how these personal vulnerabilities can interact to foster highly dysfunctional, volatile contexts between two people. So from an attachment perspective, aggression in these highly distressed dynamics essentially becomes a wildly dysfunctional protest behavior. It happens when a partner feels completely smothered, which triggers the avoidant need to enforce distance, or terrifyingly abandoned, which triggers the anxious need to force a connection. The underlying insecurity just establishes this incredibly volatile baseline. But let's move to Section 6, because there is incredible news earning your secure attachment. Seriously, if any of this resonated with you today, stop thinking you're just bad at dating. Your attachment style is just biological survival software installed before you were 5, and it is not a life sentence. The good news? It's called neuroplasticity. The brain has this lifelong ability to form new neural pathways. You can literally rewire your brain to earn a secure attachment style starting today. It just requires creating new neural pathways through consistent, corrective emotional experiences that challenge your old beliefs. So how do we actually build this security toolkit? Well, first, you seek safe co-regulation, often through therapy, to learn what a healthy baseline even feels like. You also work to replace opaque, fear-based walls with transparent, values-based boundaries. And, crucially, you practice somatic self-soothing. Try the 90-second rule. Next time you panic, wait 90 seconds. Don't text, don't spiral. You're building emotional regulation by outlasting the chemical surge in your blood, actively switching on your internal validation system. Ultimately, this whole process isn't about erasing your past or pretending your childhood wounds didn't happen. It is entirely about integrating that history so that it no longer unconsciously drives your adult choices. It's about recognizing the pattern, taking a breath, pausing, and choosing real connection over familiar chaos. So, I'm going to leave you with this to think about. Are you going to keep letting 5-year-old programming and chemical addiction dictate your heartbreak, or will you take the first step to upgrade your brain, tolerate the discomfort of true vulnerability, and rewire your system for the secure love you actually deserve? You aren't broken, you just need a system update. The choice is yours. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.